Countdown. All right, so now we are live. I had to stop Maria before she tried to get into her. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are watching me either on YouTube or in the Facebook group, and the Facebook group is, non-emergency transportation, dot, 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 not just NEMT, or if you're on my SNS Carrying Transportation Facebook page, welcome all platforms. And I have this beautiful spirit, Myra, with me tonight. And so I'm going to kind of let Myra introduce herself, but Myra, I met her and she attended one of my NEMT boot camp courses, and beautiful soul. And when she started, she was like, Stephanie, I want to do student transportation. And that's all she knew. She was like, I just want to do student transportation. So when you are in the transportation industry, and that's why I tell people all the time, like, don't get so stuck on NEMT. NEMT is honestly just a service. Like, some people might beg to differ, but that's what I'm gonna go with. So it really is just a service that you can choose to provide. You can choose to do student transportation. You can choose to take people to the airport. You can choose to take seniors to the grocery store. And so many things that you can do. And so, hey, Crystal. So tonight we're going to talk to Myra really about her journey in this industry. And hopefully, which I know, well, I ain't even going to say hopefully. I know that it's going to inspire other people that are just starting. And that's what we're here to do. Like, if you have information, it's always good to share it, because that's how you receive blessings. And so I'm all about paying it forward. And now we have Myra. I'm going to let Myra talk about or introduce herself. And then we're really going to dive in. If this is your first time joining, I don't have scripts. Like, I don't have no questions or nothing. It's really all a conversation, and it's organic. I got a couple things I want to ask her, like, in my head, but for the most part, it's just organic conversation. Okay, so Myra, tell us about you, how you started. Or I won't say how you started. I'm just gonna say, tell us about you. You know that 30-second pitch, girl.
Well, first and foremost, I love the fact that you said you just keep it organic, authentic, because that's definitely what I love to do. I love conversations like that. So,
Right.
I'm Myra Black. I am based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm born and raised. Not too many people can say that this day and age. Everybody is a transplant from other places, but born and raised.
You said a transplant, Myra.
Yes.
That's a good.
Everybody is from somewhere else, but it's cool. Those of us that are from here, it's just interesting. But that's another conversation. But I've been in non-emergency transportation, since we're gonna give it that label, now for a little under a year. My background is in communications. I graduated from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. I
Okay.
spent the bulk of my career in a large telecommunications company. Y'all may know about Verizon. I was there for almost 10 years. And I learned a lot while I was there about business, myself, most of all. And beginning in 2021, I decided that it was time for a change. And that one decision, I know that's like a trend right now on TikTok, where it's like, what's one small decision that you made that changed the
Right.
trajectory of your life? And for me, it was leaving that career, that job that I had been in for close to 10 years, and really stepping into the unknown, which brings us literally here to this space this evening.
That's what we do. I feel like, and I've heard this like throughout my journey as an entrepreneur, but to be an entrepreneur, you really have to be that trendsetter, that risk taker, and sometimes willing to risk it all for the unknown. Like, that unknown can be scary. And so if if you're scared of the unknown, then entrepreneurship is definitely not for you, because you always walking into the unknown, regardless of whatever your beliefs are. I tell people now I believe in Jesus over here, but regardless of what you believe in, it's still walking into that unknown and taking that leap of faith. So when we first met, you joined my NEMT boot camp, and like you said, it just we're just gonna call it that. But in the boot camp, I really talk about a wide variety of where you can find your customer, right? And so Myra kept saying, y'all, I told y'all, she kept saying, like, Stephanie, I really want to dive into student transportation. Now, when she told me that, I'm still thinking like student transportation, like, some small buses, a couple of minivans, even some SUVs or something. So how did you we started talking about this before I hit live. How did you know, or when did you know? It could be a double question. How and when did you know that you wanted to, one, take the leap and leave the 9 to 5, and then two, get into transportation and logistics?
Oh, I'm so glad that you included that take the leap, because when you mentioned the fearlessness that's required and how entrepreneurship may not be for everybody, how I knew that it was for me is because actually working a 9 to 5 drained me so much. Like, I was great. I was able to climb the corporate ladder. When I left Verizon, I was in a senior trainer position. So I
Mm-hmm.
had done some really great work. I had connected with some really great people, but literally just sitting at a desk or being chained to my phone or my laptop, it literally drained me, and I fought it because I was so good at my job. So that's another thing. People think that, entrepreneurs, they automatically just know, like, this doesn't work for me. No, like, you can be excellent at helping other people build their companies, build their dreams. And I was like that. I was excellent. I was like, I'm making good money.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what I'm going through is just, personal to me, and I just need to grit and bear through it.
Right, right.
Talking to my mom one day, and she's like, "You are so unhappy. You're not happy." And while I was at that company, I had 2 miscarriages. I
Wow.
was on depression medication. Like, it was so much going on, and my body was signaling to me that this wasn't a good fit. But it took me literally 3 years to
So you
finally
think
make
you
the
was like,
decision.
did you receive? You think you received, or you think you got other signs at some point, like, those subtle signs where you like, oh, that's just what happened, like it's a thing that happened, to where you just wasn't moving and you was just like pushed at that
Yeah,
point.
I think the miscarriages pushed. I'm gonna
Mm.
be honest. Feel like that was the push. Even like my appearance, I had natural hair, wavy hair, and I will never forget. I was getting ready for like a big meeting, and one of my mentors at that time, she came to me and she was like, "You might want to consider straightening your hair." And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, you know what? Those small things, they would pop up, and it would come from, people who look like me. It would come from people who, you wouldn't expect it to come from. So those were small things where it was like a point of me feeling like I was compromising who I was.
You
And
were.
then I got so stuck in being like, well, that's them. I'm different. I can impact this culture. I can be an example or support to other people, which I did mentor a lot of young Black women when I
Mhm.
was in that space. But I think it got real, and I will never forget it. I was at my desk and I had just gotten a positive pregnancy test. And I was going back and forth to the doctor. It was early stages just to see what was going on. And I had not ate all day because I was that busy at my desk. And that's when something clicked in my mind where it's like, you're going to always have to choose.
Mm,
this over you.
for you. That's huge. But that so I'm gonna let you finish this story, but I had to write down. Listen. I'm over here. I said I don't write notes, but I'm over here writing notes. So the first thing I wanted to go back to was when you talked about the job, like the job, and working that job. I always think like when you work a job, and you give it your all. And if that's the type of person that you are, you're gonna come to work and you're gonna give 100%. Sometimes 110% more than you even have to this job for other people. And what they what society holds over our heads as entrepreneurs, as people, is that you need this job, you need this consistent, in your mind, what would be consistent paycheck, benefits, the foolery with the 401k, saying, okay, well, if you leave, you can't get 401k, ain't nobody matching. So they hold that over your head, but at the same time, they're okay with, I mean, that's what they do. They're working you like a horse, like a slave, and then they're like, okay, I want more. Like,
Yeah,
and they still like, no, I want more. You're not giving me enough. And I'm like, what's wrong with this damn picture? Like, what's wrong
it's
with
never enough.
this? Is
And
that
I'm telling you, that's what I had to realize. I went through so much. And when I got to that last senior role, I had worked my butt off. And I got there and I got in those rooms, I got in those meetings, and I heard the conversations, and I realized that it was never going to be enough.
right?
There was always going to be something else that I needed to do. Then when you put that with what I had been compromising in my personal life around health, my family, that type of thing, it was like, no, this isn't gonna this isn't gonna work. So the first big leap was leaving that job. And I have so many peers that I'm still in contact with now, and they find me on social media and they want to talk about, their exit strategy. Or if they were forced out, laid off, like they want to talk about it from a mental standpoint and what it does to you, because there's a lot of false sense of security
It is. It
in
is.
these spaces, and it's not real.
It could be. It
That
could
could be
be
a separate conversation.
a whole
It's
nother
not
conversation.
real.
Me and my brother have um we talk about this on Mondays when we do our podcast with Hurrah Enterprises. So we kind of dive into, you know, entrepreneurship and that journey. And we literally just talked about work life balance. And I used to always say to him, like, is it such a thing of work life balance? And balance to most people looks like 50-50, like, you know, 50 over here, I'm gonna work 50%. But really, it ain't no daggone balance, because you're at your job. And I know for me, I was a law enforcement officer for about 15 years. And so as I did more, as I became better at my job, I moved up the ranks. That's what you're supposed to do, right? You get promotions, you move up the ranks. But what tends to happen is that there's this other, these high expectations that are set because, one, you work hard. They know you work hard. They know that anything that they throw to you, you're gonna take. Like, you're gonna take it on. You be like, oh, well, I'm gonna show them, and they
Gotta
go
prove myself.
prove myself. I'm gonna show them that I can do this. When actuality, like, you're really setting yourself up for huge failure, because all you're doing is making their business better. Making their stocks or whatever it is. You're making that business better by doing that, and they know that they know, because they got these daggone appraisals that you got to get done, and everybody wants high marks. You're saying you want to make an A, and so you're going to do those things, and then before you know it, your dreams and aspirations have been put on hold because now so much time has passed, and you like. But I always say, I'm 51, and I tell people all the time, listen, you can start over at any point in your life. You can keep starting over when the shit when it don't work. You can keep starting over, and you have to be okay with that. But that still goes back to, like you were saying, the mental health piece of it and being okay with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at that point, Verizon and Verizon.
Major key. So when I ended up leaving though, like it got dark. Because that's the other part people don't tell you about. They're like, I made this courageous leap and I jumped into this and everything was perfect. No.
No.
So when I ended up leaving the job, there were some things that I had to learn that now I understand why it was so important for me to learn it. I had to learn how to budget and live off of less money.
Mm.
I had to learn, exactly where is this amount going. I'm looking at subscriptions. I'm writing out a grocery list. I'm cooking more. I'm saying, no, I can't go get the massage this week. I can't go to the nail shop, every 2 weeks. At that moment, I was happy to be free of the mental burden, but I was learning how to adjust to a smaller amount of money. So that led me to getting a job. So this is where the NEMT comes into play.
Okay.
So I got a work from home job with a hospital here in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just responsible for sending messages, basically, a glorified receptionist. But I noticed that a lot of the people who would call in, they would cancel appointments because they didn't have a ride to the doctor. So they'd be like, I can't come, my transportation isn't running, or I'm going to be late, the transportation isn't doing XYZ. So I'm like, okay, I come from transportation. My grandma, she
Right,
had
right,
a cab
right,
company. I know when I hear stuff like this, it's a real need.
right,
So in that space, money was tight. I'm still budgeting. I'm still trying to figure out, exactly what I need to do to make what I have work.
right.
Went on YouTube and I'm just looking up like hospital transportation. That's what I'm looking for, patient transportation. So I happen to come across your YouTube, but I'm like, I don't know who this lady is, but I need to get in the number. Then I looked a little bit closer. I said, wait a minute, she in Charlotte. Wait a minute.
Right here in your neck of the woods.
So even I don't know if you remember this, but when I signed up for the class, we had to do a deposit and
Mhm.
there was like installments. So it was like, okay, this amount is due at this time and this
Right,
amount is due at a different time. And I messaged you and I was like, hey, so I don't think I'm going to have my money. And
right,
you were like, okay, just let me know, where you at. And I was like, okay, if I don't have my money, then I'll do it some other time. But I was still really like focused in on I need to be in this class.
right.
That weekend, the money popped up. Like it was literally space was made for me to be able to take that class. And I remember even in getting that money, I'm like, oh man, I could go do some of the things that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could go,
Massage.
yes, but I was still in that mind of being disciplined, which is something I didn't have from having access to so much. That being in that mind of being disciplined, I'm like, no, invest in myself, go ahead and pay for the class. And I remember being nervous because I'm like, again, this is a this could be an opportunity for me to do something that I want to do. But looking at it from a long perspective, a full perspective, I realized that no, girl, that's something you actually want to do. And I went ahead and paid the money, which it was reasonable. Like it was definitely worth it.
Right,
But that was just to let you know, like I was in this space where the blueprint was being handed to me, But with that, I had to be obedient to what I was being shown. I had to really submit to the fact that it may look a little bit different than what I know. But obviously, you're being led to these places for a reason.
Right, right. I wholeheartedly believe that piece of it. So like two of the words that stuck out that you mentioned, the first one was freedom. So freedom, I feel like freedom looks different for everybody. But at some point in this entrepreneur, the reason why you take the leap or you take that leap of faith in the entrepreneurship journey, starting your business, is because your ultimate goal is freedom. Like freedom. Like you want the freedom to say no when you want the freedom to hire family, you want the freedom to work with family, you want the freedom to take vacations, you want freedom to be able to do certain things, whether it's you say at some point with my family, I want this to continue. I want this legacy to continue. Even the freedom to say, I'm going to take this, I'm going to do this, and I know I got to do better about my money because the only way that my business can grow is that my finances personally are on point. And so I was listening to somebody, I forgot, might have been Dame Dash, and he was like, if you as an entrepreneur, when you starting off, you broke as hell. He was like, I don't care what people telling y'all, it's time. It may be points where you're broke and you don't know how it's going to work out. And he was like, but when you come out of that, that's a boss. Like you, so people have different opinions of what boss looks like. But he was saying, the glitz and glam that people show you on social media is not always what it really, I want to see not always. I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, it's not that. And they're not going to always show you what it looks like on the real journey. And so for you to know, okay, I know I want to do this and I have to be disciplined, meaning I have to take away certain things or not do certain things that I want to do because I know at the end of the rainbow, at the end of this tunnel, if I continue being disciplined, then guess what? My everything is gonna pay off. Like I feel like if you put in the work, if you invest in yourself, like you were saying, taking that chance and actually investing in yourself, that you have to be paid off. Like I feel like God is going. It's a must. Like He's not gonna be like, okay, I see Stephanie over there working. She working hard. She doing, and He's not gonna bless me. I don't. I feel like the hard work has to pay off. It has to. Like it's a must. But you gotta be able to execute. Like execute is, it's like, well, if you don't want, you trusting in God for certain things, but you got to do the work. You
Yeah.
can't be like, well, God, you said I was gonna have $1 million business. Like you said this was gonna work, and then you sitting on the couch at the house and you ain't doing no work. Like you still got to do the work. So I wrote down that because I was like, when you said freedom, I thought that was so important to bring out, like that freedom, and then really investing in yourself, but being obedient.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means, of course, is going to look different to other people, but being obedient got you where you are. So you took the class. She was so nervous at first. Like I was like, listen, y'all got to talk to me because this is gonna make the time go by slower. Like, and I ain't gonna lie, it's some people that do their classes different. I'm not. I've even been told like maybe you should try recording your class. I just really like
Mm-hmm.
the physical human aspect of it, like being able to talk to people, have dialogue, ask questions, and then I could really look at you. If I can look into your eyes, and then I'm like, you didn't get that, did you? You're not understanding what I'm saying. Are you kind of lost? And then we could address that. You know what I'm saying? Versus if you watch it, at some point I might record them, but I like the fact of doing them. So you took the class,
Yeah.
and
And I like the fact that you did it person to person contact, because if it had not been like that, I don't think I would have realized what my language. We
Mhm.
had, I don't even remember the guy's name, but he was in the class. If you watching it, shout out to you. I think he was in Richmond. This guy, he used to
Oh,
ask.
Brent.
Yes,
Yes.
Brent used to ask the questions. Okay.
Used to listen. I'm gonna have to reach. That reminds me, I need to reach out to Brent. He reached out to me like afterwards, so I feel like he probably got it going if I hadn't heard from him. Because even after the class, he was like, "Hey Stephanie, so thinking about doing this," but I was so appreciative, and I told him, I said, I appreciate you asking your questions because it's probably other people that have the same question
Mm-hmm.
and they just didn't ask it. But he came in with the questions every day, which
His
meant, which
question.
meant to me like every week. But what that meant to me was that he wanted a return on his investment. So some people attend my classes, attend my workshops, and they pay for them. And I used to be like, yo, I taught you this in the class. Like, what you mean? Why are you asking these questions in another Facebook group or my Facebook group? Like, no, I taught you this. But it's all about execution. So I could teach you everything. I could show you the ropes, show you how to do stuff, but it's execution. You have to be the person, you have to be willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be handed to you. Like, it's impossible. But Brent gave me the business, you know what I'm saying? And when I didn't know the answer, I was okay with saying, I don't know, but I'll find out. Let me get back to you. But he had questions for my ass.
Yes, he did. Shout out to Brent though,
Shout out.
because of his questions, it would open up other conversations. And I remember us having a whole conversation about brokers, Medicaid, and I was like, "Oh no, baby, that ain't what I want." Like, I remember us having that conversation and you were going over everything that we needed to do. And
Mhm.
my original plan was to cater to the elderly, like
Right.
to do doctor's appointments and outings, like if they needed to go to the grocery store, that type of thing. But once we started talking about like different ways of doing it, I was like, I don't think that's for me. This a little bit too technical. And you also mentioned like you could do private pay, but then you
Mhm.
also have to consider, who's your demographic, what
Right.
area you're going to
Right.
be in. So putting all of those things on the table and really thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? The kids,
The kids, the babies,
the kids,
the
they
babies.
don't want to tell you their life story because they don't got one. They they just want to get in, be, with their other friends if they with them, and you're just going to be transporting them. And then also coming from a family where it's a lot of kids. So I'm so used to having my nieces and nephews around. My mama, she's the type of person where she's everybody's mom. So I think I inherited that from her, just being a really maternal person. And it was clear as day in my heart, in my gut, when I said it that day. You were like, start thinking about who your target is. Start thinking about, who you want to service. And it wasn't anything that I had to think about. I said the kids. That's all I knew though. All I knew was the kids.
She was like, I want to service the kids. But that's where it starts. You have to know transportation industry, period. Passenger transportation is very broad. And most people feel like with passenger transportation that everybody is your customer. It's impossible. I don't care what business you're in. Everybody cannot be your customer. Like you have to narrow that thing down. And so once you kind of figure out like where I want to take this and not be so stuck on one type of customer, you once you notice that, then you like, okay, this thing I need to know what I need to do. So you said kids, and you was like, okay, that's all I know.
That's
But
it.
but but
And
you
sat on it for months. That's what you gotta know. Like all I knew was the kids. I didn't know where the money, the vehicles, the nothing was gonna come from to service these kids because at that point I was still working that work from home job,
Mhm.
and I was okay with taking the class and not expecting instant gratification because I knew everything that you had given us was going to be enough for me to implement when my time came. I knew that. So I feel like the old Tamara, the Tamara that was left back at that corporate America job, I was very impulsive. I was the type of person where it's like, right now, now, I got to figure this out. But having gone through that stage of discipline, having gone through that stage of really understanding all the moving parts that go into building something, I was like, okay, Stephanie gave me the rock. I got it. I'm going to put it on my mantle. I'm going to research. I'm going to pray. I'm going to allow myself to actually enjoy this process and not put pressure on myself.
yeah, and that comes with patience. I feel like you were saying, you know, you kind of impulsive, and sometimes, in just my opinion, like sometimes what tends to happen is if you're impulsive, you doing what you want to do. Because I do listen, I always have to be like taking a step back sometimes because I'll be like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing, or is this something that I want to do? And so it took me a while to really like tune in to what I'm supposed to be doing and not being impulsive saying, okay, you know how you think about like it's a it's this thing I really, you know, whatever it is, it's the thing that you really like and it comes up. Like I'm gonna use an example. I love Dave Chappelle, right? Pre-sale tickets went out and I was like, I'm gonna go on and get pre-sale tickets, all right? And I kept forgetting, I forgot. Well, today the ticket's $400. I ain't paying $400 to see Dave Chappelle. But if I would have did what I was supposed to
Mm.
do back when I saw it, if I really wanted to do it, then I would have stopped what I was doing, slowed down, and purchased the tickets. But they 450. I ain't giving them 450. So
I
I'm like,
like you,
I
but
only listen. Only people that I'm gonna spend that kind of money on is New Edition, and their tickets ain't even that much. I can't. I'm not doing it for no Beyonce. I'm not
mm-mm.
doing it for Dave Chappelle, but I do it for New Edition. But when you think about it, like I had the opportunity to get the tickets at a really good price, but I didn't. And so now, am I gonna be impulsive and be like, "Well, I really want to see Dave Chappelle"? No, no, I don't want to see him that bad. I don't
But
want to
that's
spend
that
money.
discipline because so many people would be like, oh, I have to do it now. I mean, it is what it is. And it's like, no, that's my standard.
Yeah,
That's what I set for me.
the
I'm not
boundaries, the boundaries.
mm,
But go back to what you were saying. There's certain things that until for me, like it's certain things until I get to a certain point in my business. And I mean for some people they could say that they, you know, they could feel like they're there. For me, I don't know when I would ever spend $500 because I'm kind of frugal. So I'm like, and then I'm thinking like, what else could I do with that $500? Like I could go on a trip for $500. Like it's just a matter of those. What's your priority and setting boundaries for yourself. So even if you just starting your business in transportation, if you're not willing to stop what you're doing and invest in yourself and don't think you're gonna get everything for free. I don't care what nobody say. I done did YouTube University and it was certain things that I had to pay somebody for. I had to hire a coach in order for me to be a better business owner, a better entrepreneur. I needed to talk to people that already did it Because I'm thinking like, well, if somebody could tell me the pitfalls that they had and I could avoid those pitfalls, then that's what I want to do. Like some things is just, it's gonna happen. But if you could if you can invest yourself, whether it's a class, whether it's reading books, whether it's being around people that are, I don't want to say doing better, but at a better place in their entrepreneurship journey, then that's what you want to do because you're gonna learn from people that are on your level, you're gonna learn from people that's above you and below you.
I agree. And what I thought about just now, when you were talking, it's like that ego death.
Mhm.
Because if you allow yourself to be the student, to ask questions, to invest in yourself, it automatically takes you out of this mode that everything has to be perfect or you
Mhm.
have to have everything figured out because you put yourself in the space of being a student. And
Right,
even like
right,
YouTube University, I can get on the phone with you or I can come to one of your events and I can let you know what's going on with me. Based on your experience, you can cater your answer based on what I have going on.
right,
That's
right,
what also makes a difference. If you go to YouTube University, you're going to filter through a lot of general stuff or
right,
really specific scenarios that relate to other people, but
right.
don't relate to what's going on with your business, your vision, or what you need. But sometimes, like really being able to get in the room, have those conversations, not sometimes, all the time, you're able to
Mhm.
say, hey, with ASM bus transportation, this is what we have going on. Do
Right.
you have any insight resources when it comes to that?
Comes to
And
that.
that bypasses hours and hours of trying to sift through and find what you need.
Yeah, I think people I think a lot of us look at entrepreneurship. I'm just gonna focus on transportation. This passenger transportation is not a one size fit all. It's not black and white. So I always start off with this is based on my experience or my research. Have I experienced everything that you're gonna experience? Hell no. But if you have a strong foundation and you can take a step back, if something happens, because stuff is gonna always happen. I had to replace a water pump in one of my vans yesterday. Okay, a whole water pump and thermostat. And so if you don't prepare for those mishaps and those things to happen, then you're setting yourself up for failure because if you're kind of it's the same thing with you having a job. If you are living paycheck to paycheck or if you're living for that deposit to hit from the broker or whatever, then guess what? The broker pay is reimbursing you. That's a reimbursement. You got to have some cushion. You got to have some. It's the same way like your life finances. Your car break down. You like, God, doggone it. I need to buy a tire. I ain't got it. So then, what you gonna do? Like, you just not gonna drive your car because you ain't got the money for a tire, or you gonna be better prepared. And so with this industry, like you really have to. And somebody question I put up here was, okay, well, I don't have any idea or vehicle. I don't have any. Maybe she's talking about the money or and vehicles. But before you buy a vehicle, and Myra would tell you that's the. I said that in the class. Don't buy no vehicle if you have not done your research.
Mm-mm.
Don't buy it because you could do your research. And I'm only saying because this was a pitfall for me. I started with my personal cars, and I'm not saying don't do that. But if I could do it different, I probably would have had one of my cars, and I would have had a wheel. I'd have got a wheelchair vehicle because that was what the demand was for. So you have to do your research first. You got to do your research and figure out who you're servicing because you might be wanting to do, what I'm saying, ambulatory or sedan, and it's a huge need for a wheelchair. It's all about solving a problem and finding the need. If you're not solving a problem and you're kind of basing your business on what you want, then you can't stay in business that way. You have to figure out what the need is and either in your community or another community. Because remember, you don't have to have a business in the state or the city that you live in. You can do it someplace else, wherever the need is.
Mine isn't in Mecklenburg County. No. But for me, like getting a vehicle was the last thing. I'm gonna be honest with you. That was like one of the last things that we did. So with our business, we do school bus transportation. So literally big yellow buses.
I'm just gonna pause right there. So
Okay.
when you emailed me and said, "Man, Stephanie, I got an opportunity. Like, can I call you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Here's my number." So even when you said buses, in my mind, y'all listen to this. Like, listen, in my mind, I'm thinking the little small buses, like the daycare. That's what I'm thinking. Myra sent me a picture. She's talking about, no, I'm talking about buses, girl. Like yellow. I said, OMG. Like you done went to school buses. Okay, so go ahead. I just had to get that out. The whole
Yeah,
bus.
and again, so to even back up, when I said the children, I was, and I think we talked about this before we hit play. I'm thinking get some minivans. I'm thinking, you know, like a kid Uber service because I'm like Uber isn't trustworthy. I even looked up some places in my area, you know, where they did that for kids. And I'm
Mhm.
like, you know, that's something I could do. You know, this sounds great,
Right.
but I wasn't attached to anything at that point. So what ended up happening is my mom has a friend, and her friend she had two buses, and she was working with a charter school. And she
Mhm.
was like, Marcel, that's my mom's name. You know anybody who wants to drive a school bus? So my mom was like, no, I don't, you know. Why? What's up? So they ended up going into a conversation, and she's like, as a matter of fact, I have a charter school that I can't service, and they need bus service in Gastonia. And everybody that offers those types of services in this area is full. It's only three companies in
Mm.
this area
Mm.
that offer that type of service. So immediately my mama, who is my biggest cheerleader, she goes back to the class I took with you. She said, that's it. Tomorrow, we're about to do this business idea. And even in that moment, it wasn't connecting for me because in my mind, again, deprogramming myself from being corporate America Myra, I'm thinking this is my idea, my business. I'm going to get it out the mud, figure it out myself.
Mm.
I don't need nobody else to tag along. But my mom, as sweet as she can be, soft natured, still stern, she's like, look, this is the opportunity for us to make this happen. Trust me,
Right.
this is an opportunity for us. So my mom and my sister, they go to all the beginning meetings. They're talking to the lady, figuring out what her need was, how many kids we would have to service. So the more my mom and my sister are coming back and telling me, I'm like, oh my God, this is really doable. This is possible. Like we can actually do this. And from there, it got real. So we write out our business plan,
Like it
and
got real.
business plans are, y'all, write your business plan now with what you know.
You got to stop because people feel like, and I'm gonna say I was included in people because I didn't do no business plan when I started. Again, I'm at YouTube University because I'm asking for help, and I'm like, yo, I'll pay you for your time. But people was like, this was a damn CIA or something. They're like, well, you need to do your own research. I'm like, what? What the hell? I'm saying, what kind of community is this? And so I had to figure it out as I was going along, which that goes back to what you were saying. Like, it's never gonna be perfect to start, but you got to start. You don't know if you're gonna mess it up or how it's gonna go if you never start. And so when I got to where I was getting going, I'm like, oh, this is like you said, this is doable, but I didn't do a business plan. And so
Mm,
then I had to write down, I had to do a business plan, but write down what my goals were and And all a business plan really is, it's not, it don't have to be all sophisticated, but you got to have a plan. You can't be out here winging no business. Like, you have to have a plan. Even if you say, okay, I'm just starting, I don't really know how this going to work out, but my goal is to have X amount of clients. I want to make X amount of dollars. And now you got to figure out how that's going to happen. I want to market to this amount of people. These are the demographic of customers that I would like, and write it down. Because if you don't have a plan, where you going?
The plan is everything. The plan the plan makes your work more intentional, and it helps you not
Mhm.
to overwork and overthink. If you
Yeah, it
have
does.
the
It
plan,
does. You got to have a plan, and you got to have those. And I talk about it even in the Facebook group. Is you have to set goals.
mhm,
So you have to have monthly goals, and in those monthly goals, that are monthly and quarterly goals, are all stemming back to your business plan. But you have to write those goals down, and then monthly you write down, okay, I need to do XYZ. But the kicker is the tasks that you do throughout the week or throughout the month, because you can write stuff down and make it look real pretty in a journal and on a whiteboard, but if you don't have no execution behind that, then really it's just a dream. It ain't, you just kind of dreaming. But you got to have a plan. Like, you got to have something, because if not, you kind of walking in the dark. You walking blind. This ain't no what's that movie Denzel was in where he was the book of
the book of Enoch.
yeah, well, he was blind, but he could fight. He was fighting the devil off. But listen, if you don't have a plan, you ain't like Denzel in the book of Eli. You have to write it down. Like, even being obedient and know writing down what the plan or the vision that God has given to you, then guess what? You still gotta do some work, and you gotta do some stuff. Like, you can't be out here. So I'm gonna ask somebody this question before we move on. So she says this person, I say she, but it's they have an SUV, but the broker says you need two vehicles. Whatever the broker telling you that you have to work with them, that's what you gotta have. That's why I don't work with brokers no more. But when I first started, they didn't care because they needed providers. Some areas need providers, and so they don't really care whether or not you have two vehicles or not. Depending on where you are, they will say, okay, in order for you to contract with us, you have to have two or more vans or vehicles. So you really have to go based on what they're saying. But if you have an SUV, again, don't focus on just NEMT and taking people to the doctor. If it's what you want to do, then you have to figure out who your customer is, other than the broker, because the broker is just a customer. They're not the end all. Like, it's so many more. To me, like, the broker is like 5% of this industry. Even though, you have to go through them in some states for Medicaid, but you don't have to work with the broker in order to have a successful business. So hopefully that helps them. Okay, back to our regular scheduled program. All right, so your sister and mom are coming back, and you like, man, this is doable. Like, this whole idea of buses, charter school contract is doable between us three.
Yes, between us three.
I
And
mean, yeah.
that's been a whole blessing in itself, because I've tried to do entrepreneurial endeavors in the past by myself. And if you can get with trusted family that you love, that has the same mindset as you, and y'all can build a legacy together, even if it's not family, maybe it's close friends or your tribe, people who, see a vision and actually want to build something. I highly recommend group endeavors. And I feel like earlier on, when meeting you, Stephanie, you talked about how it was you and your children and how you still work with your kids. And when I tell you, that opened up my mind even more. So when the
Mhm.
opportunity presented itself, I was like, no, Tamara, come off your high horse. It's
But,
not just about you
but it's
being the
not about
star.
you. You have to
Yeah,
remember, right? It's not about you. That's good though, because what I think, um, when I first started, like I just knew my son is one of those. He's in that 20-something age group where they don't really want to work for other people.
that's
Like
my sister.
he like, listen, I mean, and I was that mom was like, you gotta find a job, which, but after a while, I grew up like I had a better understanding, and I understood. I mean, and me and him had this conversation years ago, and I was like, man, you know what? I owe you an apology because
Mm,
I was forcing what I was taught down your throat, like, because I knew when I grew up, it was like, okay, what you about to do? You gonna find a job or you going to college? And at 18, 19, you don't really know. And when he started driving, when we started, he was like 20, 23, 24. But I apologized to him like years ago, and I was just like, if I would have helped you focus on what your dreams
mm,
were, like I wish somebody would have did years ago for me, then can you? I can't even imagine, because what he loved, whatever the thing that he loved, is what he loved. Like I can't. It's nothing I can do about. Like he loved music. He loved it. He wanted to do his own clothing line. So it made me think. Like imagine, Stephanie, if you would have poured into your kid and help him see his dream and follow through. And so now I'm like, I mean, now I'm definitely his biggest supporter, biggest fan. Like I wear his hats, and I post them online. I help where I can. But imagine if we all thought like that. Like I'm gonna follow my dream. Who coming with me? Like on Jerry Maguire, who coming with me? And when we started, like he loved it. He loved it. He's a real introvert, but he was great with the clients. And when we started working with brokers, it got to a point where the trips got low, and he was like, "Well, mom, like ain't no trips. The trips seem a little like they decreasing a little bit." And then that's what got me to thinking, like, yo, we got to figure out what else, what else is out there. Like we transporting people, so when I tell people, like, listen, you can take people wherever they want to go. If you got reliable transportation, good drivers, and you have a plan. Like you can take people wherever they want to go. You take people to the grocery store. You can take people to the casino. Take people to the airport. Take people to school. Take people to work. Like you take people wherever they want to go. And so the plan, my plan don't look like Myra plan. Myra plan don't look like the next person plan. And you have to figure out what works best for your business. But this person asked, like, what entity? You got to talk to your tax person. Most people are going to tell you to start with an LLC, um, because that's the limited liability. But it kind of depends on you. And then once you get to a certain point, once you're making a certain amount of money, your tax person will probably say you need to transition to an S corp if you start an LLC. But I started with an LLC, and heck, Amazon is an LLC. Like it's just a matter of, and in North Carolina, you can have like up to five DBAs under one LLC or one business. So, you just got to figure out which one works for you. But I would definitely say consult a tax person. Okay, Myra. So then y'all had these conversations with charter school. How did this come about with these yellow buses? Like, well, you knew that the lady said, like, listen, this is what we need. So you found the need, you got the
mm.
customer, you found the need, you got it's a family affair, it's a family business. So how did y'all get to actually moving forward with the charter school contract, getting your buses, and since school has already started, we'll talk later like how it's going, but
Okay. So one thing that I want to say with the contract, and I think this goes into the broker conversation that you have a lot with
Yeah.
people. So even us coming up with what was our what we required to be contracted for, it was not based on the school. It was based on us. What we needed. It was based on what we was gonna have to pay the drivers. It was
Right.
based on cost, overhead. It was based off of profit, gas. This school is in Gaston County, so that's about 20 or 30 minutes outside of where we live. So all of this went into how we contracted and asked for what we asked for. And I
Mm.
want to say this. So in us drafting up the contract, the principal, she sent us over the previous contracts that
Mm.
she had with the previous bus transportation provider.
Mm.
They were getting paid half of what we get paid.
Look at God. Listen.
But I say all that to say, like, be clear about what you want because it's business. If there's a true need there and you allow yourself to really be put in a place where you are answering to a need, of course you're going to be ethical and you're going to say, okay, this is what I need. This is what I project and see for this venture. But it really was not a situation where we were yielding to industry standards at that point. It was really, what do we need? How are we going to sustain as a mother and two-daughter business with employees out the gate? How are we going to make this work for this particular contract? And that's what we based it off of. And we were so unapologetic about it, still is, because it's like, how else can you run a business if
It's not
you,
personal. It's not.
not at all.
It's not personal. I think. I mean, I'm glad you brought up that point because even me sometimes I shun away from pricing things because I may be looking at it in a different way. Like I might be like, okay, well, this is a real need. I know people kind of, I'm worried about what people got in their pockets, but at some point you have to be like, this is my rate.
Mhm.
That's it. I'm gonna slide this piece of paper across the table, and this is what my rate is, and you stick by that. But you know that you have to do that first. Like you couldn't have been able to come in to negotiate or say this is what we need if you would not have thought about your expenses, gas, paying people, commercial insurance, like paying yourselves, being able to still live. You wouldn't have been able to do that if you didn't think about that first before you even went to, what I'm saying, before the contract was solidified. You wouldn't have been able to do that because you would have took what the other people were making.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't personal. Like, it, even looking at those figures that the previous people were getting, honestly, like, I, no judgment about it. All I knew was, for me and my house, we shall know. All I knew was, for us, this is what we were going to need. And there were certain things that were important to us as well. Like with our drivers, we paid them a really great wage to
Mm-hmm.
drive. They have to come from a different county and go into another county. You know, they are transporting these kids. So what was important to us was being able to pay people good wages so they actually want to come to work. So that they actually, care
They
when
come
they're on
to
the bus.
you and they're not gonna have you viral on the news and social media because how they treat you. People people appreciate because sometimes we say it's very hard to find good drivers because I find myself saying that sometimes. But once you get people in, you can pay them good. But after a while, you'll find that people will stay if they feel like they're valued. Like
Hmm.
people want to be appreciated. They want to know that you think of them when you're making decisions, when you're doing things. They want to know that. And if you're just, in here saying, well, you're going to do it my way or the highway, and you're not open to any type of discussion, then you're really not going to be able to keep people. But once you get people in and you treat people kind and you treat people, a certain kind of way and you pay them good, shoot, you might have some employees for life.
Yeah. And
Like,
that's one thing my mom is big on. Like my mom has caught hell from her friends and stuff. Feel like you pay your people too much, and she's like, "No, this is what I feel in my heart because I actually want these people. I don't want nobody calling me saying." Oh, I can't come in and nobody's there to drive the kids because that's something else. You have to make sure that you have reliable people, reliable equipment, a reliable setup. Like all of this matters on from day to day. So
yeah, you're
those are
right.
different things that went into it. But like getting the buses, because I you asked about that and I saw somebody else did too. If you want to buy buses, it's easy. Call around to different transportation hubs for different counties that are near you. So we were going as far as Monroe. We were contacting Raleigh. Just contact different counties. And every county has a transportation center where they
Mhm.
have buses, all kind of buses, vans, all sorts of stuff. And normally you just get in with them. They have probably a specific day that you can come in to get the bus and you kind of go from there. But honestly, getting the vehicle for us was the least of our worries. It was
Mhm.
all the other stuff building up because it's a need, you know.
Right,
It's a
right.
need. Not a lot of people are doing this, and there are so many counties in my area, in the Charlotte, North Carolina, and surrounding areas where if one place didn't have anything, it was literally call a county over and we'll go look at it. One thing I will say though, if somebody wants to get buses, just make sure that small things are intact. Like they can still sell you an excellent bus with a great engine, but you want to make sure like you have your stop bar intact. You want to make sure that, there's places for you to put cameras. All
Yeah.
of that type of stuff matters. So there's like small details that you want to make sure are non-negotiables, but getting a bus is not hard. They are very affordable. I will say that in our experience, they come in twos.
Mhm.
So most places want you to buy two at a time. We just happened to look up and we were able to get like one separate. We have a total of three right now, and we're
Mhm.
looking to get another one. But getting a bus is not hard at all. And they are very, very affordable. Very.
Listen, they out very, 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 very. I was because when she was telling, I was like, "Say what?" And you think when you go buy a minivan, especially depending on the year, you could spend $40,000, and not even thinking if you do a wheelchair vehicle, it could be $40,000, $50,000. I think I was telling you when we talked, I was like one of my one-on-one clients. He purchased, I think he's in, I forgot what state he's in. He found one on Facebook Marketplace. So he was like, "Oh, I got a van. I already got a vehicle." And I was like, "Well, you got a vehicle," but he already owned it. His business was Turo, so he already had a. So he said, "I'm just on Facebook Marketplace," and this lady had a van. So I'm thinking again. I'm still thinking minivan. So he was like, "No, it's got a wheelchair lift, and people could sit in it." Still, I said, show me a picture. Let me see a picture of this thing. He has, like the little daycare buses. It's that bus. The lift gate is a real lift gate in the back, and he got it for $2,500 off of Facebook Marketplace. He said the lady that was selling it, she was trying to open a salon, like a mobile hair salon, and it didn't work out. So it's just been sitting in her yard. And he was like, everything still worked. Like everything was still working. I said, man, $2,500.
Yeah. That's what kind of time all of this is on. So it's really, I will say, and it goes back to figuring out who your target is, but depending on who it is, like I thought getting into business was going to run me so much money. And when I tell you like the resources and just everybody coming together
Mhm.
has made a big difference. But for us, I don't think we realized how affordable all of this was. Like the biggest expense for us, like most people who are in transportation, is insurance.
Sure.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Insurance, I would say, of course, paying our people, but insurance is next. Like those are our big chunk.
Insurance is insurance. The same guy that I'm telling you about. He said he called and got a quote because he currently has Turo. So he called and got a quote, and he said they were charging $1,200 a month, and I was like, nah, that's a lot. You
Yeah.
probably, and I tell people, so if you're looking for insurance, it's just regular commercial auto insurance. But when they will ask you for the VIN, same as your personal, and they're going to get the type of vehicle that it is. And so that's going to determine your rate. And it could depend on where you live at, your driving record, your credit. Like, it's so many factors that go into the commercial insurance. And I feel like that's what makes it so much higher. But when he said $1,200 a month, I said, for one, that's a lot. I was like, now he's younger, so that could be a factor. And the other thing too is, you have to be really careful. That's the best way I can say it. Is you have to be really careful when you are looking for commercial insurance and going in and saying, "Oh, I just started my NEMT business. I need some commercial insurance." They're gonna see you coming from a mile away, and they're gonna charge you even more because commercial auto insurance is commercial auto insurance. There's no such thing as NEMT insurance. It's just commercial insurance. Don't let these insurance agents and brokers swindle you, making you think it's a certain insurance. My agent that's here in Charlotte, and he broke down some of the, and he said, we asked like what your business is, but transportation is transportation. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, I got an NEMT and I'm new. No, but depending on your state, they will say, well, how long, like, what's your experience? So if one of the ladies I know, she drove for another business. Well, that's experience.
That's it.
If you used to drive a school bus, that's experience. You drove for Uber, that's experience. Don't be like, oh, I just started my business, so I don't have no experience. No, they're talking legit about how much experience you have with transporting people. That's
Mhm.
all you want to know. If you drove for Uber or Lyft, you drove a school bus before, you used to drive a cab, you know what I'm saying? You drove for another business, like, all of that is experience. It doesn't have to mean like, don't be, so quick to say like, oh, I just started my business. You just knew it being a business owner. You ain't driving. I've been driving for I've been driving for a long time, for 30 plus years. And so when somebody say what kind of experience, I got 30 years of driving. What you talking about? Like, and you have to, but you can't be like, oh, I don't know. Like, no, 30 years. I've been driving for 30 years. That's how long. When I renewed my insurance, I looked at the form today and it was like, when did you get your license? And it said 1987. I graduated from high school in 1989. I was like, damn, girl, you done had your license for a long time.
But no, and also for me, because I was so intimidated when I took your course about the insurance. But honestly, it goes back to the plan. What's your cost?
Yeah, you gotta have a
Work
plan.
it in. We're not talking about you just paying the insurance out of
That's
your pay, your
okay.
salary. We're talking about the business costs and expenses.
Right.
So you gotta kind of work that stuff in too, where it's like, okay, this is what I'm gonna need to be able to do this. And even though, like I mentioned, that being one of our larger bills, it's still not something that I don't think any of us are dreading. Like, oh my God, this has to come out, because we made provisions for the fact that that needed to be paid. So
Yeah,
that's important when it comes to coming up with your costs.
great. But in that math that you did, Myra, or the math that y'all use, it don't matter if you got one van, four buses. It don't really matter. The math is the math. The same way. I'm not paying for insurance. I'm not paying for gas. I'm not paying to clean my vehicles. I'm not paying myself. All of that comes into my rate. So when we think about determining our rates, and even in the workshop that I just did, you have to think about your expenses. You can't be so stuck on, okay, well, the broker is paying this amount. If the broker paying $20, you can best believe they're making $60 off it, and they just paying you $20. But you have to figure out like what is going to sustain your business, and sustaining your business is going to mean you got to include all of these expenses. You can't just stop at gas. You got to include insurance, but the biggest thing that most of us don't include, Myra, is time.
Yeah.
Time costs. It costs. If you got to pay for my time. And so you think about the time that you set as your hours of operation. Like you might say, I'm gonna start at 6 o'clock, but my first client is 40 miles from me. 40 45 minutes to get there. Well, are you gonna pay for the time for me to get up, get ready? Like all of that is important. I'm not saying you got to hit people over the head. You got to make sure that it makes sense, but you also have to be accommodated for your time, especially if you don't work anyplace else and you are relying on that. So you can't be like, okay, I made $50, but I'm gonna spend 45. That means your math ain't right. If I made $50, then I want what's coming out to me to be 20 of it, and then the other can go. But you got to figure out that math, and don't really. I don't know. I just want people to know it's not black and white. Like it's
Mm-mm.
not. It's not a black and white.
It's
You
so many factors because, like you said, and it goes back to what we pay our drivers. They have to drive 30 minutes. So
right.
thinking about what is it going to take to pay these people, and then they're doing this, what, one, two, they're coming back and forth twice a day.
Hmm.
So all of
Right.
that stuff has to be thought about, because it it could vary depending on where you're providing services at, what your vehicles are. Another thing that we talked about that really helped us with gas is when we were at the NEMT meetup, and somebody was like, look at, whatever vehicle it is, so you can be clear about how many miles you get on a gallon. Like,
Yeah, Jeremy talked. I think Jeremy talked about that because he was in trucking, and
mm-hmm,
that's a good point when you think about how many miles per gallon does your vehicle take.
mm-hmm,
Gas right now in Charlotte is for unleaded is 359, 369, something like that. Depending on what side of town you're on, it's 379. So but if you take people 20 miles a couple times a day, how much is that costing you? Because gas is high, one, and you might have a gas guzzler vehicle that's gonna suck up. It might be, some vehicles are 17, 18 miles per gallon. But when he brought that up, I was like, yo, that's a definitely good way to put it. Like you gotta break that thing down. You gotta
and
break
that
it
helps because we had parents reaching out, and they're
down.
like, it's a small charter school. So they're
Right.
like, can y'all add more routes? The cluster isn't working for us. We need a house stop. And those conversations were based upon the gas. honestly, that we were spending on the buses. So we found ourselves saying like, no, this bus is full. These are the only stops that we have. That type of thing, because it would have cost us more money to
Yes.
add those stops. But like that confidence, and you said this earlier in the live where you talked about like that freedom of being able to say no, of
Mhm.
being able to say yes,
Yeah.
depending on what is actually best for you for real. That has been something that I've noticed in the past few weeks really has made a difference, because when there's a no, it's a no based on what is actually best for everybody involved.
Right. Right. And it's not just a flat no, because it's never anything personal. Like I'm
Mhm.
not saying, but if it's not making money, one, that's a no. But then if it's not making enough money, but you gotta stretch people so thin to make it happen, then overall that may not be a good business move. But you have to sit down, you know what I'm saying? You got to sit down and think about all the pros and cons, and then say, okay, I'm a pass on that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. That's just like if you decide to work with a broker. If you decide that you want to work with a broker, and you calculated your rates, my rates when you go to my website is $35 each way. I don't apologize for it. I don't none of that. It's $35. Now somebody across town, they may be, $25 or $30. But if you think about the fact that you're gonna charge $30, and a broker, to work with a broker, they're gonna say, well, I know you saying your rates are $30, but we paying $18.50 over here. If you decide to work with that broker, then whatever the lack of funding, the lack of money that you getting paid, that's upfront. They're not hiding that. You've made that decision. So I'm not saying it's a right or wrong decision, because a lot of times when you're first starting, that's the crutch that they know. They're gonna put that crutch out there. Like, listen, you ain't getting no customers right now. You know what I'm saying? You need to go on and sign up with these brokers, but also be smart about it. Read the fine print and see if you can negotiate. But only way you can negotiate is if you calculated your rates. If you ain't calculating no rates, you ain't negotiating nothing. You just kind of taking what they have, and that's the downside in this industry, is that the brokers are really taking advantage, especially for the smaller businesses. They're get like Myra and go to some charter schools and get you some school buses and get you some school buses. So somebody asked, do you include a temporary surcharge? So when y'all did the contract, Myra, with the
Mhm.
school, did y'all think about, or was that part of the equation that gas may go up?
No. And looking at that question, it should have been, but no, it wasn't. For a couple of reasons for us. So one of the things is we're only going in a certain mile radius.
Mhm.
So if we were going further places, like further out in different areas,
Mhm.
I think it would be more of a concern. But for two of our buses, it's really just it's an hour route, literally. And
That's
it's
not
kind of
bad.
all in the same area. So that wasn't really a big to do. Now there is one bus that goes a little further out. And
Mhm.
I wish that we could have thought about that, but how we mitigated the fact that that bus uses a little bit more gas is
Mhm.
that she actually has less students on the bus, so it's less stops.
Okay.
If you stay further out and you have to get on this bus, then it's not kind of it's established that she's not going to be able to transport 50 or 60 kids.
Right. Right. Right.
So
That's
that's how we've kind of managed it now. But you learn. Hindsight is 2020. And
but it,
I would
but
say that
surcharge
that's
might,
something that I would think about.
but you might not need it. You know what I'm saying? Only time I know, for me, Like only time surcharge really comes into play is when I put it in the fine print, like if if gas increases to not necessarily a dollar amount, but a percentage, like if it goes over a certain percentage, then I include a surcharge. But to me, if you kind of thinking about, if you taking all that into consideration when you are contracting or calculating your rates, that gas may go up. I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, gas has been crazy. So
Yeah.
if you're not thinking about that, even in the forefront, then you're missing out because you might sign a contract with the facility and you didn't think about, gas prices changing and it might hit your pocket a little bit different, but that just means that, you probably, to me, like gas is gas then insurance. Like, I mean, to
We
me,
gonna need it regardless.
you're gonna need them. So you gotta figure that part out. And even for your insurance, like your insurance expenses may change. You might have a driver or yourself that get into a fender bender and so you got to think about all of that stuff and not make it such an exact math, where it's like, okay, my insurance costs this, I spend about this much in gas. That's your general calculation, but I think in the back of your brain you have to be thinking like, you know insurance, it might go up a little bit, you never know what might happen. And so that's a good point that this person brought up, like that surcharge. Some people do it. All right. So how was first day of school? So you've been rolling for almost a week.
I
What
think
did
it's
it
been two.
two
This
weeks
is
and
the
start
second full week.
okay.
So they
So
did like a midweek start, and then last week was a full week. This is the second full week.
okay, okay.
So first day was hectic. It was, oh my goodness. I could have cried. I told everybody that at the meetup after them first 3 days. It was a lot, y'all. Like the parents
Mm,
and what we did, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but what we did is we we took it beyond email. So the previous providers, they only allowed parents to contact them via email, but we opened up an actual contact line for them to be able to reach us on. So that was a lot. Um, it was just so much. That first day, we keep our buses up at the school. That first day, the gate was locked. We had to wait for the principal to come. So that made it where all the buses were behind about 30 minutes. It was just so much chaos. It was so many calls back to back. Of course, people want their kids to ride the bus. Nobody wants to have to come all the way to the school. So there were demands and it was just a lot. But I can honestly say, getting through those first 3 days and really assessing that we needed to structure things a little bit differently and
mm,
get a little more automated with our system for dealing with
mm,
parents and routing and all of that. It was a quick thing. It was all hands on deck with that because it was really overwhelming. And of course, everybody's like, that's what it's like the first few days of school.
yeah.
Don't overthink it. But when you're responsible for it,
You overthinking it for
yeah,
sure. You overthinking to the 10th power. Like I hear you be like, listen, I know I hear you. I hear what you're saying. However,
however, this is what it feels like.
like,
I
yeah.
even had a parent. She had a temper tantrum on the phone. She was
Oh, okay.
cussing me out. It was just so much. But when I tell you, I sat through it. Me, my mom, my sister, and then my cousin, she's our lead driver. Like we sat through it and we talked about it to each other. And I'm so grateful that we had that support
Hmm.
because it was a crash course, literally. Because that's another thing. You can plan what you want the business to be,
Right.
You can have your vehicles ready, but when you throw the actual people in the mix,
It's different.
it's different. Like actually getting those kids on the bus, interacting with parents, interacting with the school, it brought up a lot of different mini challenges that you don't normally think about.
And at the end of the day, really, it's impossible to come up with a scenario for everything. It's only way that you gonna get through it is to go through it. That's
Mhm.
it. Like you can sit here and plan all day. Like if this happened, we're gonna do this. This happened, we're gonna do this. This happened. But at the end of the day, there's no way that you can plan for everything. There's no way that you can plan for if you have a flat tire, you run over a nail,
Mhm.
kids act crazy, their mama acting crazy. Like, there's no way. It's impossible, but you have to go through those things. And now you know, okay, now I know what to do. And that goes back to what you said, is you have to have systems in place.
Mhm.
If you don't have systems in place, that everybody would, it would be, I feel like it would be so chaotic because everybody got their own little ideas. I want to do this. No, we should do this. But if you got stuff written on paper, like you got processes and or systems on how we're gonna do things, and everybody has agreed on it, everybody understands what we do if this happens. But then if something crazy happens, then we all come back together and we able to communicate and talk about it. Like that's a win. That's
Yes.
all day.
The systems matter. And what I also realize is that if you decide to go down this path, right, and you decide to work with these charter schools, we are contracted. So we're not affiliated with the school. We provide a service to the school. So a lot of the things that parents wanted to know would either be directed towards the school or totally independent of the school. And the stuff that was independent of the school and was really centered around transportation, like
Mhm.
really being clear about what's your system, what's your standard, what's your policy, and sticking to it because the two really don't coexist at
Right,
all.
right. I think I just feel like it's all about it's the things that we go through, like, but it's also the fact on how you respond to those faux those things, and they don't break you. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't let it break you. You have everything has to be a lesson, and that way you write this thing down, and you know, okay, well, this thing happened. You write it down so when it comes back, you have a system in place to say, okay, when this happens, this is how we're gonna respond to it. But you can't respond to the same thing different ways each time, and nobody really knows. You know what I'm saying? Because then something gonna happen, and they're gonna be like, "Well, do you have a process for this?" And you're like, "Well, yeah, I got a process, but did you follow that process?" And so it still goes back to, at the end of the day, you can hire Joe Blow to transport people from A to B. Like the transportation piece of it ain't hard. I don't care what nobody say. I can wheelchair, stretcher, whatever. And none of that's hard. The business piece of it is what's going to keep you around and help you sustain and grow. If you're just worried about taking people from point A to point B, then you're not a business. It's really you're just doing something. But if you actually sit down and have processes, have a business plan, look at your numbers, make sure the numbers make sense, pay your bills on time, build you some business credit, work on building better customers, make sure that your customer, like all of that stuff is what matters. And that's how you grow. So I'm super proud of y'all, man. Y'all over there killing it with them school buses.
Man, thank you so much. I was so excited to touch bases with you because I wanted you to know. And what was also, and I have to throw this in there because it's another leap of faith. So before school started, I was still working my work from home job. And the closer we got,
Mm-hmm.
and once I started to realize that we were going to be responsible for transporting these kids on day one and beyond, I looked at, my family, and I'm like, I'm going to have to leave this job.
Mm, that part.
And,
That
and it was really one of those things where it made me it was another leap, because I had gotten so used to, even though it was less money, I was used to that paycheck coming in and it being, what it was. And
mm,
it was again me having to take a leap and really put my efforts into what we had worked on. We had negotiated, what the money was going to look like, but still me leaving this mindset that it has to come from one source, or it has to be a certain way. So I
right.
typed up my resignation real fast. And I remember sending it in and projecting that I would be able to do a 2 weeks notice. After that week, I went ahead and called my manager. I was like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and bring y'all back y'all equipment, because there is no way.
It
And I'm
ain't
so
okay.
glad that I trusted myself, and I trusted that, because trying to handle those first 3 days and work that job, I would have had a major breakdown.
It wouldn't have worked.
Mm-mm.
But
But
to they go back to what you said at the beginning, like even taking that leap, but just having that mindset shift that you had to say, listen, listen, God, I'm rolling with you. You know what I'm saying? I know you said this is what I need to be doing, but I listen, you got my back, Lord, because listen, you got my back, because I don't know. But I think I think one of the biggest things, and even the takeaways from me, what you just said, was really just taking that lead, but understanding like I'm gonna choose me. I'm
yes,
gonna choose what I want to do, what I know I'm supposed to be doing, need to do, however you want, versus this job or this company over here. I'm taking the choice. I'm making the choice to bet on me. I'm a bet on Myra,
yeah.
and
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 her wellness, like that that in itself, like me understanding what I need in order to be most productive. Like I have to have some type of order and peace. So even being in this mindset where it's like get rich or die trying, or hustle culture, all of this stuff that entrepreneurs sometimes online package up and give people, I knew that my entrepreneurial journey also partnered with some sort of ease, some
mhm,
sort of structure. That was important to me. Everybody has what is important to them, whether, it's freedom, flexibility, whatever, but ease is important to me. So once I broke everything that was about to take place down to that simple thing, is this gonna be stressful for me? Or is this gonna cause me to be able to be challenged but still have some ease? It was a no-brainer. I
mhm,
was like, it's no way. And even my manager, like her and I, we stayed in contact. She's like, I'm so excited for you. Like I can tell that
yeah,
you are the type of woman who follows your heart and has faith. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a testimony. It is
yeah,
taking me
it's,
years to really have that type of faith.
mhm,
And it came from going through situations that I don't never want to revisit again, and feeling things that I
yeah,
don't want to feel again, to understand that if you don't bet on you, if you don't put you first, it's
listen, you
it's
better preach
foolish.
that thing, girl. If you don't, because guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna choose somebody else.
Hmm.
You will always pour from an empty cup. Like you're gonna always be, if you're a people pleaser by nature, that's very hard because you want to make sure that everybody else is good. But then when you look around and you need some, and you look around, ain't nobody there. And then you like, well, wait a minute, I'm pouring into all these people, I'm doing all this, but I don't have anybody I can, that you can call on. And a that is a wake up call.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute, I got to bet on me. Like, we ain't doing this.
Can I say something about that too? I know we going long, but I want to say something about that because that was another thing that led up to this opportunity and me getting into transportation. I had to go through this whole experience of recognizing who was for me, who wasn't for me. I also had to learn self sabotaging behaviors that I had,
Yeah,
overgiving tendency, perfectionism tendencies that I had. Like all of this stuff mixed with the budgeting and getting more structure all happened leading up to this space. So I feel like going on this entrepreneurial journey, it's definitely something that can help you build legacy, but it's also something that stretches you and grows you on a spiritual level because you do have to learn how to advocate for yourself. You
right,
do
right,
have to learn how to manage your time. If you scrolling all day or you're talking to people who having dead conversations that don't really feed you, or if you're trying to help everybody,
right.
every bit of energy that you put in places that don't produce fruit hold you back from where you're wanting to go. So
That's
to get to this space, like I in 2021, 2020, 2022, it was a lot of tears being shed. It was a lot of me having to part ways from situations, from people, from ways that I was showing up. But now that I've gone through it, I'm really grateful
mhm,
because I was able to get stronger and to be able to stand in this space and be a leader and be a business owner and
right.
actually, build something for me.
And that's important. I think when you have that epiphany or that wake up call, then that just gives you like some extra fuel to be like, man, I got this. Like, God, you with me? God, you with me? Like, we together. I got this. And when you realize that you have that power, then you unstoppable. I feel like what's the worst that can happen is they can say no. That's the worst. But I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna ask. And the worst thing that somebody could say is no. But if you don't take that risk and you don't take that chance and you're not betting on yourself, then I don't know what you're doing. That means that you constantly your thinking is that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, but really you're just waiting on somebody to really tell you what to do. Which
Yes.
means that you're not a business owner. That means that you work for somebody. But at some point, you have to be like, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna take this risk, and not being afraid that I'm gonna make mistakes. I may lose money. I might not make as much money at the beginning. Like you have to understand that may happen, but the end game. That's what that business plan. The end game, like when you know that all your work that you're putting in is going to pay off, and that end game is okay. I got all these systems in place, and now stuff start happening. Like these things start happening. Contracts, people calling, people starting to call, people wanting trips, and it's not through a broker. It's through the work that you put in your business. So you got to be. I wholeheartedly feel like you have to be willing to put in the work. Like who else gonna do it? Like I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna try to ask these questions. So somebody said they got. It was we was talking about the brokers, and yes, you can. You can do a trip for a flat fee. You can do a flat fee all day, but if you have not calculated what your rates are, then you're just calculating something. So I've done flat fees where somebody call and say, okay, well, can you please do this? And if you submit a how much you would charge, and I could get it approved. They do that, from time to time. And I know one lady in Arkansas, like she works with brokers and she does really good, but she transports people that are not in her area. So a lot of times it's a matter of stepping out your comfort zone, stepping out your area, and saying, okay, I'm gonna take these trips. It's not in my, 20, 30 mile radius. You're gonna go out a little bit. So they do take, some of them do offer, or you can give them a flat rate. But somebody else question was about gas cars. I think I answered that, like, if you can get gas cars, yes, but that's still about building business credit, which is a good thing. And if you can use gas cars like Wex and Fuelman, then those are some good companies. Somebody else said they're leaving. They trying to leave their job. They're trying to leave their job too. Um, I answered that. Do you transport? Have a contract with kids? Um, Let me see what this one says. I'm in the area. The school is a short bus. I wanted to get into taking kids to school when parents are already at work. I have parents call all the time, and they're willing to pay for it. They'll pay, like, especially parents that may work. They may work a little bit further from home, or their kids have extracurricular activities after school, and they can't pick them up. But that's still going to go back to you being somewhat established and having things in place, because when you think about transporting kids, listen, you think transporting seniors or something, but when you thinking about people, kids, and I just think about me. I mean, my kids are older, but as a parent, you're leaving pretty much somebody that you don't know to take care of your kids and make sure they get home safe. So parents ask different questions. They ask about your driving record, what kind of background checks you do for your drivers, when the last you've been in an accident, how much insurance do you have, like, do you have a tracking on your vehicle to where I can make sure they're gonna bring, like, do you work with the school system already? They got a ton of questions because that's their baby. They're gonna ask them, and I normally don't have no problem. I don't have no problem answering them,
I
because
get yeah.
I get it. Like, I think that's all the questions. I have grandkids who want to do activities after school, but their parents can't take them. They want. A lot of people like student transportation. Like for us, with working with the school, and this year, normally I work with Charlotte Met, but this year I'm not renewing my private vehicle for hire tag, so I'm gonna transport like Steel Creek area, but we don't touch kids. We don't touch you. The parent, especially in the vans, the parents put them in the car, and if they're old enough or whatever, they get out the van. I push the button, they get out. If they're special needs to some extent, then the teacher comes and get them. Drivers don't do. They don't move. We don't move from the driver's seat. So you have to think about that stuff when you think about kids. Like, people, it's their kids. So, when you think about a kid that's special needs and you got to touch them, like, I don't even want to put people in that situation where somebody might think something. Or so, you just got to be really careful when it comes to kids. But I love it. I love that part of the business.
And it's a need because we have parents that ask us, can we drop their kids off at the most random places on the school bus? So the conversation is always like, hey, these routes are routed to accommodate everybody who goes to the school. So I know that there is really a need for
Yeah,
specific transportation.
it is. It is. I had a lady today call me from Atlanta, and it was her mom. Her mom needs transported. Her mom is going from a rehab center to senior living that's private paid, and I already have a connection, or I won't even say contract. It's really just I'm a provider, and so when they get new people or people need transportation, their family member will call, and she's like, "Well, she's just going from the rehab, and she's moving into there." So it's so many ways. It's so many ways. that you can provide transportation for people. You just have to figure out that thing. Myra, 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 I so appreciate your beautiful spirit coming on here and hanging out with me tonight. Like, I hope that Myra has inspired. I'm sure she had, 'cause she inspired me. Like, I feel like this is the community of people that we need, to where, when you think you think you're kind of struggling, or you having those days where it's people, we all go through that. There's other people going through the same thing. I don't care what they say. If they own a business, they're going through the same thing. Might not be at the same time, but they're going through the same thing. And so, I appreciate Myra coming on, sharing her story, answering y'all questions that y'all have. Like, I definitely say keep up the good work, Myra, because you and your mom and your sister are really doing big things. And I'm just imagining like y'all gonna get more buses, gonna get more school contracts, and it's gonna keep going, girl.
We receive it, and thank you for having me. And like I tell you all the time in private, I'm going to tell you in public, thank you for being a vessel. Thank you for being a face and a voice for an industry that has the potential to help so many people build legacy and achieve their goals. That's not something heavy as the head that wears the crown.
Right?
Everybody can't do what you do, and you
Shit.
have truly impacted me on so many levels. And I'm always gonna hit up your line, show up to your events, because you touched me more than what you really knew. And
Oh,
I want to thank you in public. I always tell you in private, you are a true vessel.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. I received the love, man. And I can only say that it's just because I'm just being obedient. And so when people say, "Why are you doing? Why you don't charge more? You should be charged." I'm being obedient because I know what happens when I'm not obedient. I already know what happens when I'm not obedient. So I just know that this community that I'm trying to build, that I want to build, like, it's gonna grow, and it's gonna grow to where everybody is gonna eat good. Everybody business is gonna be able to sustain and grow. But it's gonna take all of us. It takes a village. I don't care what nobody say. You cannot do anything on your own as an entrepreneur. You literally have to have a great support system. If you got people around you that's Debbie Downers, they negative, they ain't pouring into you, you need to kick their ass to the curb, because you and make room for your tribe that's gonna push you and help you and tell you when, what I'm saying, you're doing something wrong, or you can do this better, or why are you not doing this. If you don't have them type of people around you, you need to get some. You need to get some. That's what I got to say. But
ASAP, because it makes a world of difference. I will never do this journey alone. That's not even, it's not necessary. Some people may have to, but seriously, get with the people who like it, because it makes a world of difference.
a world of difference. If you the smartest person in your group, you in the wrong group.
That's it.
Yeah, right now. I know I ain't the smartest person in my group, you know what I'm saying? But I have a group of people that hold me accountable, and it means the world to me. Like my sister tribe, definitely, I can talk to them about almost anything. And so you need people like that in your circle that are judgment free. Like, I don't want nobody that's going, if I tell you something where I'm struggling in my business, because I have days that I struggle. And I don't want somebody to put my shit on social media, or I tell you and then you tell somebody else. And so it's important. At this stage of my life, like, it's super important. And I've been in circles and I've had to cut people off. And I don't mind. I tell people all day, my cutoff game is very strong. When I feel your energy is different, and when I feel like you're not for me, I'm gonna cut you off. Period. With no explanation. Like, quick. because I'm not. We're gonna get off after this, but I asked God to show me people that were not for me. If you didn't put them here, I want them gone. And I'm telling you, it's people that I thought that were on my team, or people that I thought that, meant good. And so you have to be able to discern that and know, okay, these red flags, they ain't just for dating. They for they for all kinds of relationships. And so when you see those red flags, like you gotta pay attention to that stuff and know, okay, maybe it's not just how they are. Maybe, you know, and so you gotta back off from that stuff. And so I wholeheartedly believe that. So I appreciate you, Myra, um, for coming on, chit chatting with us, answering the questions, sharing your journey, sharing your testimony with us. Like, I definitely appreciate that. I'm gonna keep it up in the group for a little while. The next NEMT, I'm gonna change the name probably. Y'all. I'm just telling y'all because this whole NEMT thing. But the next networking event is September 23rd. It's here in Charlotte, and it was so crazy. I told you the dude that came from New York and the lady and her daughter that came from Mississippi. But the next course I'm offering is October 14th. It's here in Charlotte. It's really just for the essential principles, like how we talked about, just understanding the foundation. But it's going to be a face-to-face class, 1 day, all-day workshop. It's October 14th. But I'll put the information in the Facebook group for those. Myra, what you got going on other than adding more contracts? What you got going on in Gastonia?
Right now, just fine tuning and mastering this first experience. The stretch goal is definitely to add more, but right now I'm enjoying networking, meeting different people in the industry, different things that they do, and just really mastering this portion of our journey, learning what we need to learn, looking for grants, because anytime you can get some additional resources and funds to help you, it's key. So really starting to think about things from a bigger picture standpoint and
Right.
being in this space of mastery.
Yeah, that mastering is, like you said earlier, though. It's about always willing to be a student, because nobody knows everything, and always being willing to learn and learn from other people, but the right people. So I definitely, you gonna master this thing. Like, I'm gonna be like, Myra, I need you to teach me how I can get some buses.
You know I got
I
you.
ain't driving them. I
We
ain't gonna
working
drive
on
them, but I hire some
what we
people.
got.
Yeah, I don't listen. I ain't gonna drive them, but I hire some people to drive them. You know what I'm saying? But I wish you the best, and everything with you and your mom and your sister, man. I know you're gonna blossom and just take over this bus transportation. So everybody, good night. If you're in the Facebook group, I will keep the replay up for like a week, because I just feel like I put it out there. If you miss it, if you miss it, you miss it. I don't know what to tell you, but I'll keep it in the Facebook group for a little while so people can check it out. And Myra, thank you again. Good night, everybody.
Nice. Thank you.